The family was traveling westward, looking for a piece of land to farm, and had chosen a spot not far from Isaac's place. The family was, Isaac said, a crowd, and I knew it was time to move on, seeing as how I don't do particularly good with crowds of people. As he was taking his leave from the small shack where he had lived, the family had given him a scrap of paper soft with where all the hands had passed through, so he could share the news with his fellow travelers he met on his journey. They told him of other events they had heard of along the way. He tried to remember the details, but admitted that he wasn't much for conversation, since there was so much noise from the sprats. It seemed a dozen of them. My thinker fuzzed up as like powder and recollector might not all it could be, but I thought that they could have another fight at a place called Bunker Hill, and the Patriot militia got whipped there and sent running when they saw the bayonets on the British soldiers' muskets. He sat, quietly sipping the evergreen tea he always carried, a brew made from pine and spruce needles. He swore it cured colds. He must he said he preferred it over furrier tea from the outside, but thank you, missus. The paper he handed to Samuel's father, Olin, was a single sheet that had been folded and unfolded so many times it was near to falling apart. It had been printed on a crude press with wooden block letters and was smudged and hard to read. But there was a brief description of the fight at Lexington and Concord, and a drawing of figures firing muskets at some other figures that were falling to the ground. As Samuel studied the paper in his father's hands, he thought, everything in my world just got bigger. Two other families, the Clarks and the Overtons, pulled up in wagons. Isaac had spoken to them on his way to Samuel's place, and they wanted to hear what Olin had to say about Isaac's news. Samuel looked around the small cabin on edge of the woods that was suddenly filled with people, all talking over each other about the meaning of the battles. It seemed that the strong and sturdy long walls no longer protected his family. The loud outside world his parents had escaped by moving to the frontier had found them. Samuel was excited and frightened and overwhelmed all at the same time. "What does it mean?" Ebenezer Clark asked Olin. His face was red and round as an apple because he drank home beer 3 quarts every morning just for breakfast. It could be local, just some more trouble in Boston. Samuel's father said, "A riot or the like. There's always a chance of rabble-rousing in the cities, and it doesn't seem likely that a group of farmers would try to take on the entire British army." He paused, then added thoughtfully, "England has the most powerful army and navy in the world, and a gaggle of farmers would have to be insane to fight them." Likely or not, this from Lund Harris, a soft-spoken and careful man, whose wife, Clara, sat nursing an infant. "If it happens, we have to think for what it means for us here on the edge." Nobody spoke. Samuel could hear the cackle of the fire in the fireplace. In the homey, safe cabin, the craziness of information from the East seemed impossible. There was always some measure of violence of the frontier, marauding savages, drunk, thieves, evildoers, men who operated the outside walls of reason. Evildoers. Harshness was to be expected in the wild, but nothing like this, nothing that challenged the established order, the very rule of the crown, the civilized life that came from English, a way of living. The very idea of fighting the British was too big to understand, too huge to even contemplate. These settlers always been loyal to the rules of the land, obedient to the laws of the country that ruled them. Ben Overton stood. He was a tall, thin man whose sleeves never seemed to come to his wrists. He said, "Well, I think we should do nothing but wait and see how the wind blows." And with nods and a few mumbles of affirmation, the rest got up and went back to their own homes. Not a single person in that cabin could have known what was coming, and even if they did had seen the future, they would not have been able to imagine the horror. Frontier life. The only thing that came easy to people of the frontier was land. A single family could own hundreds, even thousands of acres simply by claiming them. If getting the land was easily accomplished, using the land was a different matter. It had to be cleared trees for farming. Some oaks were even 5 to 6 feet in diameter, and each had to be chopped down by an axe, cut to manageable sections, and hauled off. Then the stump was dug out of the ground, often with a handmade wooden shovel. One stump might take a week or two of hard work, and a piece of land could have tens of dozens of trees. It left a family was lucky they might find a clearing left by the beavers, which log off an area and dam a creek to make a lake, rotting out all the stumps. When the trees and the food are gone, the beavers leave and the dam breaks down. The water drains off, and there's a handy clearing left where the lake was. Thank you for listening to Audiobook Select. If you want to hear more of this book, go to our playlist on our YouTube channel. This was Chapter 2 of Woods Runner by Gary Paulsen. You can find Chapter 3, 1, and more on our YouTube channel.